they have no trips, no anti-flank. So it's like the perfect game for you to be aggressive as a sentinel, because there's nothing they can do if they're not playing for map control to figure out where you are if you're being aggressive. And you don't even have to get kills being aggressive, by the way. You just have to be aggressive and take this space. And sometimes it's be enough to like hear them rotate. If you're standing here, you'll hear them rotate back through mid, or even in situations where you potentially die, they're going to have to be aware that you've pushed. And then they might be having to like play differently in future rounds because of the pressure you've given to them in that round. Like, even if you're being aggressive right at the gate and they're meeting the aggression in A main, if you're aggressive here and then run back to your setup, then that is like showing them that you're aggressive, not afraid to fight in this A main section. They might even decide to use util in this A main section just to not take this fight anymore, or just to like make sure they can win that fight if it happens. Obviously, like as well, you got to pick your rounds. You can't do it every round. This game though, it's really good to do it a lot of rounds, like most rounds, because you're just going to be giving pressure, and then if you're smart with it, you don't die. And it's just about trying to like figure out like what the enemy team want to do to like counter you, or if they actually want to counter you in general, or how far you can push the boundaries up to behind them to catch the rotations and that kind of stuff, or just to flank them in general. Because you haven't even left a site, because your heat map on defense would literally be like a bunch of red over here, like some orange over here, right? I can actually make a heat map, probably not with Epic Pen. Your heat map is basically like this, where you basically have only populated like this section of the map on defense. This is it. This is all you've done in defense, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Have the right plays all occurred in this position? I'd be skeptical to think that they did, especially with their team, as I've already mentioned, right? I can imagine there'd be plenty of good plays, winning plays that would exist somewhere over here somewhere, or in this midsection somewhere. Don't lock yourself to like this. You've already said you were auto-piloting, so should I stick to playing Cypher? I feel like I make it more difficult myself to learn 2 different agents on one map. Yeah, I would say I would try to stick to 1 agent per map. It's not always possible because of like insta-lockers and things. Obviously, it's less of a problem for like sentinels, non-duelists, are less of a problem. But yeah, I would try and stick to 1 agent if you can, per map. So what I would say is just try and play different agents across the role, like as much as you can, without sacrificing your efficiency or like proficiency with one of the agents that you already play. Yeah, I just would have liked to see you flank a lot more, play with more of the map. I think that's also just a thing on attack as well. I think overall the main thing with the entire of your gameplay is we're not limiting ourselves to very small portions of the map when we don't need to, right? And it's not necessarily, as I've mentioned, it's not necessarily a bad thing to limit yourself to portions of the map. It's just that I can't imagine that you're making the right choices if you're limiting yourself to those positions on the map, if that makes sense, right? So it's all about making those right choices and not being less afraid, or like not afraid, or more confident maybe to make those decisions that even though people might think is like troll, it's better to make that decision, learn from that decision, and then make the right play or better play next time that maybe slightly tweaks the decision you made, or like completely removes it and you might try something different. It's better to make those mistakes and do better next game than to be scared of making decisions. Something I feel when I'm playing is that I have the fear of failure. Like when I die, when I'm aggressive, I get too passive afterwards. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that problem. And what I say to that is, you got to think about ranked as a learning process, or like as a learning tool, right? Because if you watch, for instance, if you watch pro players talk about ranked, it's their practice tool. It's where they go to warm up because they have bigger stakes games. Because we are like normal players that don't play pro games, right? We don't have higher stakes games. These are our highest stakes games possible for us to see. So we're going to be more defensive about RRR because it's the reward of winning and playing, right? So I would try and dissociate RR being the reward and make learning and being a better player the reward of playing ranked. So that way you'll see it as every game is a learning experience. I can go into that game, I can make mistakes, and I'll learn from those mistakes for the next game. And if I become a better player from making those mistakes and learning from them, then I'm going to be a better player, and therefore my RR is going to go up because I'll be a better player. So I think a lot of people tie themselves to RR, and RR is a indicator that you're a good player. RR is not the fact that you're a good player, right? So don't be too scared about losing RR. If you derank a ton because you made a bunch of mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, you'll do something that is very common in ranked games for a lot of players, especially successful players. where what they'll do is they'll kind of go on a curve. I was about to like do it with my fingers, but I've literally got a pen. Where they'll do something like this, right? They'll improve, and then they'll hit maybe a plateau. They'll get worse because they want to try and fix that plateau, and they'll go down to a bit here, and then they'll get better again because they learn from those mistakes. And then they'll plateau again. They'll learn from the mistakes, and then they'll go up again. This is what happens to good players when they think about the game in a way that's think about ranked in a way that's efficient and good, right? Because they are thinking that, and they'll make mistakes. Those mistakes will put them down, and then they'll go back up again. A lot of people actually do fluctuate as well when they reach their wall, right? When you reach a wall in a game, you actually don't just like stop dead. You're like doing this. You like do this, right? And that's basically this without the learning, right? This is without learning. This is with learning. That's essentially what that is. And good players do this. Bad players do this. When the wall is, this is the wall here. They learn that they go down instead, and then they go up. That's what happens. Is there any methods I can use to get better quickly, like a routine? Well, yeah, I would say routines are like one of the best ways you can improve at something. Right? If you do something consistently to improve, like with the aim of improving at it, you're usually going to be better. Yeah, so it's when in ranked, I think a lot of the problems with this type of stuff, like confidence or like all this kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff, it usually stems from focusing on your teammates too much, or like focusing on what your teammates will say to you, or like what your teammates are doing in general. So when you die, don't even bother thinking about what your teammates are doing. Don't try and analyze their plays. Don't try and do anything. Just sit there and like think about what you want to do for the next round, what you think you did wrong. You can tab out, have a notepad open, just like think about what you did wrong or something. Well, I wouldn't tab out actually, but just try and do something that would like take your mind off what your teammates are doing. If that is like closing your eyes and thinking about what you did, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't think about it too hard either. Like I wouldn't go into the buy phase still thinking about last round. As soon as buy phase starts, think about the current round. Think about the current buy phase. Think about the next round. I feel when I VOD with you, I can't find the problems. Open RuneScape when you die. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. And it feels like I'm not improving. Yeah, that's obviously like that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people have is that they struggle to identify their own mistakes. And a lot of it is just try and be open to ask yourself a lot of questions about the situation. And if you don't know the answer, try and figure out ways that you can find it. So try and find pros that like are in the similar situation. Try and think critically about every single little thing. If you don't know the answer to something, try and break down the question even further, right? Instead of being like, what mistake did I make in this play? Ask yourself, why did I move that specific way? Why did I aim that specific place? Why did I go to this specific position? Why did I use this specific piece of util? Like, why did I fight this specific person? Like that kind of stuff. Try and like break it down super fine. So then you're like answering all of those individual questions, and it can lead to like some disparities where like, oh, I actually don't know why I fought this person. I actually don't know why I threw this piece of util. I actually don't know why I moved in this position. When all the rest maybe seem kind of justifiable, that one, actually, wait, maybe I shouldn't have thrown that piece of util, and then it can link into more like situations where maybe you made those mistakes, or like maybe it's going to link into more of like the overarching mistake that you end up making. Because now, because I threw that piece of util, I actually end up making a movement mistake in 2 seconds later because I threw that piece of util. It made me think that I could fight the person, etc. Like that kind of stuff, right? Obviously, that's a hypothetical. You just want to keep asking yourself as many questions as possible about the situation you're in. And obviously, well, like I said, if you don't know the answer to those questions, try and find sources where you can find the answer to those questions as well. If you've already broke it up, super fine. For example, I don't know, when I know my over-rotate is good or no, and I think it's good and it's actually bad, then I continue to do the wrong thing. So the weaknesses of over-rotating is that they're going to get a free sight very easily, and then you're in like retake sim without actually having an advantage. So then you're basically now attackers with like the disadvantage in the round, right? Because they have the bomb planted, that kind of stuff. So it might be that you're giving up too much for free and that you're not getting info fast enough. So maybe you didn't place your cam far enough forward or that kind of stuff. But like that's the type of like quite like that's very general as well, because obviously I don't know the specific situation. Like if you want to do the over-rotating like Nats does on Ascent, right, with the Cypher B2A, he does it in rounds that he expects them to be A. For sure, right? He obviously expects them to be A, and also he even hears them A. That's also a very important thing about when he does the over rotation, is that he knows for a fact there's information A, that someone has said there's steps there, whatever, right? And even if he gets it wrong, there's still situations back from that. It's fine that you put yourself at the disadvantage because you hit the low percentage. Because that's just part of the game. It's part of the game to lose low percentage, like to lose high percentage situations. The point is that he made the good play in that situation. He made what he thought was the correct play in that situation. Like statistically, he thought that he gave his team the best chance of winning that round. And even if it ends up being wrong, it was wrong in that round, whatever. It's just hard for me to find what bad and what's right. Yeah, but like I said, it's just like trying to ask yourself as many questions as possible about every situation that you feel like you messed up in. Like in these rounds, right? I feel like a lot of the mistakes you made in this round, in this game, sorry, was the autopiloting, right? Because as well, they were going to be a lot. So maybe there could have been a round where you decided to, like I've already mentioned, right? You can flank, but you can also set up on B, right? Just maybe find a round that you can set up on B, and you may be wrong. That's fine, but at least you tried to adapt to the situation instead of autopiloting. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of the coaching session.